I'm Phil Jones. I'm a workplace representative for Unite the Union, working in the finance sector. I'm also the Vice Chair of the Unite National LGBT Committee in the UK. Unite is a multi-sectorial union. We've got 20-odd sectors. I work in the finance sector, but we represent people who work in finance, work in the health sector. We've got people who drive buses. We've got people on oil rigs, everywhere. There are other unions in the UK similar to us who have multi-sectorial, but we also have specific unions. For example, the teaching unions. Most of the teachers are in a specific teachers' union. We have specific unions for musicians, for example. There are specific unions in the rail network, etc., who only deal with people who work on the railways. So different unions have a different approach and they have different types of membership. We are lucky in that we can actually gain from our experiences across all the sectors, but then we can pass that knowledge on to some of the smaller unions who don't have the broad industrial structure that we have, and they're dealing with specifically one type of worker, and we can tell them exactly what we've learned from our similar environments going forward.
So 4 years ago, Unite the Union set up our community membership, which is a membership that's targeted at unemployed. So we're the first union in the UK, and we think we're the first union in the world to set up to organise the unemployed workers, and it's been really successful for us. We now have 17,000 members organised in 120 branches across the UK, and we campaign on big and small social issues, whether it's against the bedroom tax, benefit sanctions, housing, keeping the NHS, and we also supplement our industrial strategy in big disputes like British Airways dispute, and our big campaign has been our Sports Direct campaign, where we've exposed what a £1 billion company, how the £1 billion company treats its workers. 28,000 workers on 0-hour contracts and some horrendous cases within their warehouse. Young woman giving birth on site, 100 ambulance call-outs, the most dangerous workplace in the UK to operate. We've sort of held a sort of like a torch to that workplace, and we've exposed what's going on, and we've had big victories for workers at that workplace. We challenge LGBT discrimination cases in wider society by having a vehicle to challenge whether it's discrimination on getting work, on sort of getting housing, any kind of specifics like that. Then we can challenge the Unite community as a vehicle for doing that.
My name's Carolyn Simpson, and I'm the Regional Women's and Equalities Officer for the London and Eastern region of Unite the Union, which is the largest region in the whole of the Union. We've got all of London and a great swathe of Eastern England as well, so it's pretty big. Try and ensure equality. I think one of the first things you've got to do is ensure representation. So make sure that we've actually got the reps in the workplaces and on the committees to make sure that LGBT voices are heard, that their views are taken on board, that their opinions are listened to and acted upon. So we make sure that there's real across-the-board involvement in as many committees as we can. From the LGBT committee, we send delegates to the industrial committees. So from the Equalities Committee, we will send a delegate to, say, the Aerospace Committee, to the Finance and Legal Committee, to the Health Committee, etc. So that there's a real link up between equality strands and industrial strands. So what we've managed to do is create a bridge so that both sides hear each other's points of view and incorporate it into their own regional work. And then of course from the regional LGBT, take that upwards to the national, so that all of the regions feed into national, and then they form Unite policy and take that forward to conference, to the TUC, to wherever, to be honest. But those links are absolutely vital in my view, and that's how we get people involved and engaged and hopefully committed to what we're doing.
Workers' rights, LGBT rights are being attacked all the time throughout Europe, and what's commonplace where you do not have an organised workplace, where you do not have trade union, where you do not have collective values, a way to fight back, then these conditions, these discriminations are a lot higher. We talked earlier about the Sports Direct campaign, which has dignity at work policies. It has the right to pay people the national minimum wage. It has legislation in place that these things should happen, but they ignored all those things. And they have a dignity at work policy, but we know that young women were being sexually exploited to get hours the following week. So we have these extreme cases in the UK and in Europe.
What I try to count our successes in is getting LGBT activists from a workplace where we never had any before, or getting LGBT delegate members to the committee from sectors where we've never had them before. For instance, chemicals and pharmaceuticals, heavily male dominated, so very few women, and quite macho, so unlikely to be out gay places. So getting delegates from places like that. Aerospace, very few women, very few visible women. Getting successes in getting those people engaged, involved, and, you know, really participating in committee work. We're trying to organise the campaigning agenda so that people can be attracted into it, instead of thinking, oh God, more sets of minutes and more boring white men talking at me. No, we do all that boring stuff that we have to do by the rule book, and then move into what we're going to do, what's exciting, what we're going to campaign on. You know, the Women's Committee, for instance, are currently campaigning on menopause awareness in the workplace. Taboo subject, nobody talks about it, we're not having that, so we're raising the awareness and getting employers involved. LGBT are working closely with our BAEM colleagues on raising awareness about men's health. And that's all aspects. We're not just talking about prostate or HIV, it's all aspects. Blood pressure, exercise, alcohol, smoking, diet, you know, diabetes. Many of our male members work in, for instance, passenger services, so they're bus drivers. So they sit on their considerable bottoms all day, and it doesn't do their health any good at all. So we're trying to raise that. And that's getting it away from just the agenda and the minutes and everybody nods off, to actually working up a campaign which involves people and is directly relevant to them. They can see that we're actually doing something.
2 years ago, we were asked to come to Croatia by the Croatian Trade Union Federation, and we talked about different ways of organising, and I talked then about community organising, and within that audience was activists from the LGBT community, and that's where we made our initial sort of connections, and we've been working together ever since. And our advice would be expose, and what's any kind of discrimination, and people will come with you on it. We now have equality reps in the workplace in the UK today, and we challenge any kind of discrimination through our community branches and wider society. So keep with it.
So it's taken a long time to get to where we are, but the way I think we've reached where we are is by being more open, about involving people, about saying it's okay to be gay, about getting gay activists and lesbian activists to actually stand up and say, I want my voice to be heard by my union and I want you to listen. The problem we've got in identifying LGBT, for instance, is that people have to declare that they are LGBT. As a woman, I don't have to declare I'm a woman, it's fairly obvious. But what is not obvious is what my sexuality is. And what is not obvious is whether I've got a disability. And so people actually have to tick that box, yes, I am LGBT. Without that tick, we don't know how many people we've got. So we have a major job of work on hand, in hand even, to get people to identify so that we can find them, so we can campaign with them, so that we can organise with them, that we can raise the LGBT issues with the employer, with society, etc. So that's the problem we've got. I don't know where they are and how many how many LGBT members I've got to aim at. And until I've got those figures and I know where they are, it's a bit of a challenge, to be honest with you. But we'll get there.
I've been learning a lot about Croatia in the last 2 days, the things that I didn't know. And there are many similarities as well as many differences. And I would say that Croatia, with regard to LGBT equalities, is probably at a point where the UK were 20 years ago. You know, and we are now moving forward in the UK. And I envisage that places like Croatia will actually move forward at a much greater and faster pace than the UK did, because you've got the examples in other parts of the country. So we can help you, hopefully, learn from our mistakes, and then things will move forward a lot quicker than what we were able to do.